Hey, what's up? I'm Basil Barrington.
I'm DJ Keo. Thank you for joining us again for another podcast.
There we go. Oh my goodness, dude. All right. So we are in the second episode of Loki. It's called The Variant. And what do you think? Just overall?
It's more things are starting to come together because when the show first started, it's very vague about what they want the show to be about. Is it an action show? Is it a time thriller or whatever? And it's things are starting to become more clear about what they're trying to do. So I'm definitely interested. I want to see where this is going. What do you
I
think about the show?
Second episode, I am definitely interested. I want to see what's going on. I like how they're wrapping it really well. You know, this is people thought about this. People thought about how to put this together. You know, and it's a lot of intrigue. They're building everything up. They're setting everything up. I'm like, I remember the first episode I gave a 7, and I said as the season goes on, I will sort of like, if I need to upgrade, I will. I did watch it 2 times. I watched it once without subtitles, and then the second time I watched with subtitles. And it's getting good, I had a really good time watching it, and I was like, okay, this is what do you think about the story, first of all?
I think the story is interesting for Loki as a character. He's like really smart, and he's always like the smartest person in the room scheming.
Yeah.
And here's the situation where he met his match. And like as far as storytelling goes, like that's storytelling 101. Give a character like Sherlock Holmes has Moriarty, and like it's a person that's your equal or your match, and makes your life upends your life as you know it.
Right.
And so like it's a good concept for storytelling. So I'm definitely interested to see how they have to stick the landing though. So, but yeah, so far so good. I like it.
Well,
do you want to run over the plot? Or
yeah.
sorry.
I was gonna say, the landing. I hope it means the landing is like, okay, we have to do a season 2. I hope that's the landing. Not just like, okay, it's done. We ran out of money. We don't have a budget. Yada yada yada. So why don't you start it off and like set it up for us? How did everything pop off? And we can start getting into the giggles.
Okay, so the second show starts off with Loki getting his variant jacket, and everyone makes fun of him, which this is lighthearted.
I want a variant, well, not a jacket, but on the actual website on the shop, the Disney Plus shop, they have the variant T-shirts. I want one of those. I want a variant T-shirt.
Disney is genius with the marketing. Like they know what people want. They got the Baby Yoda and they got this other stuff.
Yeah,
it's genius. So they decide to bring him out in the field to use his expertise to figure out if he can help catch the other Loki. And so they take him to a Renaissance fair where one of the time cops was kidnapped. And they said this is a different thing for what's happened before. Right. I'm using time cops in quotation marks, right?
Right. One of the hunters. They call them hunters.
Yeah. So he goes to the Renaissance fair, and it goes south very quickly because Loki still thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and he's trying to scheme everybody. But like, it's hard to scheme people if you work at a company that's involved in time. I'm thoroughly certain that they've gone through this thing already, and they know what he's capable of doing and what he's not capable of doing.
They have the receipts. They know what you're about to do.
Like. I guess he's slow to figure out. Like they gave him like a kind of a tutorial about how the whole system works.
Yeah,
and they're making jokes about what the bombs do and all this other stuff. But they gave him a kind of a lesson about how it works, or whatever. But he still thinks he's outsmarting everybody. Right. So they take him to the Renaissance fair. It goes south. He's stalling for time, and they realize he's BSing everybody. And so it backfires, and then they bring him back, and they decide, well, we're going to keep Loki around, but we got to make him useful. So they have him look over the old case files to figure out if he can come up with a solution. So Loki goes to the librarian, and the time librarian, and tries to get more information about the time police or whatever. It tries to get the organization more information about them, and they're like, nope, you can just look at your life and that's about it. And Loki discovers that
Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they believe that the variant Loki is hanging out in catastrophes in the world.
Doomsday scenarios.
Yeah, doomsday scenarios. So they decide to test this theory out, and they go to Pompeii, and Loki's running around telling everybody he's from the future.
Right.
And they check the thing, nothing
happens to the timeline.
So he believes, okay, we're good here. Maybe Loki's onto something.
Mm-hmm.
And they shoot forward, and they pick up the stack of the gum, right? And I think they use the gum to kind of figure out what timeline they might be in.
Right, exactly.
And they test the theory. Was it Alabama?
Alabama, 2050, Alabama at the Rocks Cart Superstore.
So they go to the superstore, and they all split up. And the Loki number, what was it? Loki Prime, Loki 2. Like, what do you have a name for Loki?
I don't know, but this Loki that was at the Doomsday event, because there was a hurricane, a catastrophic hurricane. I like this Loki, and yeah, go ahead, continue. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. No, I was saying we didn't name for the Loki so we can separate them. Right. So we got the MCU Loki, and then I guess female Loki.
Okay, we call it a female. She probably has a name at some point, but
yeah, there's got to be a way to
call it, right? The female Loki, right? Let's call it a female Loki.
So she shows up and takes over people's bodies like he does in the movies. And, they had this long, drawn-out conversation, and Loki's still trying to con her into letting him run the show. And she's like, nope, you don't understand what's going on. I'm smarter than you. You're an idiot.
Right.
Yeah, she don't need you. They break out into a fight, and she changes into a dude or to another person, and that person's mopping the floor with Loki. Which that's the one thing that I'm like, I don't know. Loki's super strong.
Oh, see, that's the thing I was thinking about. I was like, okay.
The person she turned into is human.
Yeah.
So unless she can put her powers into that person, Loki, he's not on par with Thor, but he's super strong. He's stronger than a human. So I
haven't seen that yet. I haven't seen that yet in episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in the lore of who Loki is, even in the MCU, the Hulk picked him up and threw him on the ground back and forth, and Loki was still fine. Like, he's a little bruised up, but the Hulk basically stomped him, and he was still alive. So that lets you know he's durable. Mm-hmm. So if a human pushed him around in the store, that wouldn't mean anything to him.
That's not anything.
It shouldn't mean anything to him. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe that's a plot hole or something. I don't know. But so they draw it out, and she activates her. She's been stealing these devices that reset time.
Yeah,
from all of
the charges. Mm-hmm.
The hunters. She's been stealing them this entire time, and so she has them all jiggered up in the store with some kind of timer that she sets up. Yes. And so she's about to cause havoc on the timeline
and create all these multiverses. It's crazy. This is where it gets really interesting.
So she opens up a door to run out, and Loki follows her, and then you can see all the catastrophes with the timelines going all crazy.
Happening at the TVA, exactly. Wow.
Yeah, so there we go. So that's the show. That's the
Okay, so let's take it from the top. So the question I have to ask you is this. You just went through a very thorough sort of deep dive about with episode 2. Do you think that the Loki that's in the TVA actually set all this up? Do you think that's possible?
That is a very real possibility.
Mm-hmm. He's super smart, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not dumb.
Yeah,
and he likes to toy with people.
Yeah,
so there's a very real possibility that could be a really large twist. Mm-hmm. I haven't really thought about it like that, but after rewatch 1 and 2 to see, he did get a hold of the time device in the first episode, and he jumped around in the building, but we don't know if he left the building.
Mm.
So that's the part. He got the collar off, so he could do whatever he wants at that point. So there's a possibility. Like he's a genius level intellect. So I'm certain that he can figure out how to use the device and what to do with it.
Right.
And his whole character arc in the movies is just to toy with people and pretend like he doesn't know what's going on.
Excuse me. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just like, this guy is super smart, so he could be setting all this up. So, okay, so then the hunters from the TVA and everyone else went back to the scene of the crime in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And, this is when Loki was basically saying, listen, we're being set up. This new variant of Loki is setting us up. That was, at that point, that was when I thought, like, well, you know what? This guy, he could be setting this whole thing up. It's going to be fun to see what, like, the next episodes are all about, because that's what I'm sort of thinking. I'm like, this guy, he could be the mastermind of this whole entire thing, because they kept saying, like, are you trying to take over the TVA?
Yeah, they're implying, he keeps implying that he wants to go see the creators, the lizard people that created this thing.
The timekeepers, yo.
The timekeepers.
Are they really lizards, or that's just like a little joke they
it's
have
in the comic book they look like kind of lizards.
Oh my goodness.
It's a weird design, but you can see it in the courtroom thing.
Right.
They have the faces on the wall, so it kind of looks like that.
Right, exactly.
But you haven't actually seen it. And in the recap, they kind of give you, they're kind of wearing like wizard outfits and they're like green or whatever. But you don't really know for certain what they look like, so who knows what they're gonna do.
Right. So Loki had all these homework assignments. He had to go to the library of TVA, research everything. What do you think? Do you think, again, I'm going in this sort of direction that Loki's the mastermind. Why did they go to Pompeii?
So he basically went down there to prove his theory that if you're at a disaster area and something that's about to be destroyed, that you could tell everybody what happens, or you can change something in the timeline and it won't matter because everything's going to be gone and it's all going to get wiped out anyway. Right. So it proves that you won't adjust the timeline if, say, you drop some gum there from the future, or you killed somebody from right before the whole thing exploded. Like, they won't be missed. Timelines can be still intact.
Yeah, people are still going to get killed. People are still going to get Swiss cheese. Nothing's going to change. They're basically saying that this variant, needs to hide in these sort of doomsday scenarios, earthquakes, everything going off, hurricanes, whatever, which kind of makes sense. But again,
I think it's a storytelling device to kind of explain it to people so they can kind of make sense of it. So he can act silly and because most people are just going to watch the show once. And just casually, they're watching while they're cooking dinner or whatever. And oh, okay, Loki's on. Like, a lot of people, that's how they watch it. There's not a lot of people who sit there and okay, what's in the drawer? Okay, what kind of outfit is this? Does this match the comics from 1940 or whatever? Like, very few people actually do that stuff. And so, I think that was probably a storytelling device just to kind of simplify it for the people. But you're right. It's a thing that kind of makes sense, but also doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I would like to see how they work it out, because that's they have like I said before, they have to stick the landing.
So we also know that in the year 2050, Walmart has been replaced with Roxcart Superstore.
They probably couldn't get the rights to Walmart.
Right, exactly. They were like the Roxcart Superstore. Here's the thing, though, right? Again, this is very intriguing. I also like how sometimes, let me just say this, sometimes I get annoyed with movies and, TV series because they take a really long time to get to where they need to in an episode or in the entire series, right? This specific episode, even with one, right? So I'm pleased with both episodes, but in this specific episode, they really took their time building up like the entire action part at the end, and I thought did an excellent job doing that. It wasn't boring how they were building everything up until like everything started popping off towards the end. What do you think about that? How they just put it all together? It's sort of like it just glued all together, like just how everything was moving throughout the entire episode.
Well, I think that they have the formula for the build up and then the action sequence at the end for all these shows. And so far, that's how it's been for the first couple shows. So I think they're probably going with that. Plus, it keeps the cost down. If you can have the build up and then you spend all your budget on the last two shows, whatever.
The fighting, scene and everything.
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy.
Do you look at the Loki character as like an action-packed thing or more of a cerebral character?
No, I don't know.
Thor is action-packed. Thor has to punch things.
Yeah, Thor has to like
Loki
break things.
Is more of a, he's more talking and thinking through and like thriller-esque, I guess.
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
more of his speed.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna front, man. Like I said, wasn't really into this whole thing, but I like this character. I like Loki, because I think it's because he's not a superhero. He's like just this sort of intellectual egghead sort of person who's just like super smart. And he's like, who was the person,
He's like brainwaves, man.
Yeah, it's just like he's a mastermind. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he's a mastermind, and that's why I kind of think I'm like, this guy can't be that smart, that intellectually, just like way up here without looking at the entire sort of situation and saying, if I do want to take over the TVA, how can I do it? Right? You're not just going to walk in and just start spraying people up. This guy, he does things, like the guy was saying, you stab someone 50 times over and over and over again. I just think and it's all for fun too, so just to set something up like this and have all the intrigue and everything else to go along with it, that's not like a superhero who's trying to break things. That's someone who's a mastermind, diabolical, just want to do something like that.
He's more of an anti-hero though, because he's been bad in all the movies, but he has moments where he actually does good. So let me ask you this:
What's up?
Why do you think Loki wants to take over the TVA?
Well, do we know that though?
It's I think it's heavily implied that he's very interested in how it runs, and he wants to meet the timekeepers. The kind of, I don't know why he wants to meet them, but he definitely wants to meet them.
Well, I think
they've implanted that into you. That's a better way to say it.
Right. See, I think that he wants.
He hasn't said that at all.
His concern is that once he helps the TVA, that they don't dissolve him. Right. So he's saying he wants to meet with the timekeepers. Just say, hey, this is my case. This is why you should let me go because I helped you. At least that's what they are implying, right? And that's why I'm saying, okay, there's something else going on here. It just feels that way. It can't be that sort of straight cut, like, hey, we're going to find this variant. It can't be that straight cut. And you know what? The variant that he met basically said, I don't want, to take over the TVA. And that sort of he was intrigued by that. That interested him. He was like, well, wait a minute. Why not? This is what I want to do, right? Or let's do it together. It's something else there, man. This is a very interesting show. I think, just how they're not leaving us hanging. I think they're giving us enough information for us to sort of try to figure things out or to make assumptions and then come back the next episode and surprise us even more. It's a very good show.
So do you want to talk about time travel in TV shows and movies? Because this show more reminds me of Doctor Who than, I guess, Looper or Tenet or these other type of time travel type shows or movies. This show reminds me more of Doctor Who and the TARDIS for how they treat time travel, where they're going back and forth. Whereas Endgame, they had a loop system where they're saying stuff was exactly how it is, can't be changed. If you go back, uh, the things have to be stayed the same. I think that's the reason why they said that Endgame, what they did was okay, as far as it didn't cause a variant, because in the movie Endgame, the argument was that their time travel is not like Back to the Future. When you go into it and you go back in time, whatever is going to happen is going to happen no matter what, and so you can't really affect it. Either way, it's going to end up the results that you have. So I was just saying that the show, it has a more Doctor Who type feel about going back in time and seeing events and that kind of thing, versus the end game way, which I know some people who watch this going to have arguments against that, but like that's the feeling that you get when you watch it. A lot of time travel stuff ends up being overly complicated for no reason. Like Tenet, you have to watch Tenet like 18 times to understand what happened in the movie.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment.
What do you think about this? Just really quickly, I think that it also reminds me of the sort of time travel or time jump that they used to do in like Stargate SG-1, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, how it was just
exactly.
Like you go through something and then you're there and then you come back. People could follow you in as well, you know, and follow you out. So it's sort of weird.
Yeah, they had the little doorway thing. It's kind of a it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of Doctor Who. It's a little bit of Stargate. It's a little bit of Back to the Future. It's a little bit of all these things together to kind of give a feeling of it. But like they tried to do it in a way that wouldn't confuse the viewers.
Yeah.
So they gave you the principles that everything is as is, and if something happens, it'll mess it up. But they haven't gotten to the paradox where he's close to anything that he's done before. So like they've kind of kept him away from that, because if you bring a character into something that the character is in the same place and time, then everything gets convoluted and confusing. And so I think that they're trying to keep the show as simple as possible for the people who are casually watching. And so their time is more of like a Doctor Who. We're nowhere near each other. We're not going to come across us. We're not going to be in the same room at the same time. And it's more straightforward just to keep it less confusing. But I thought it was interesting that the time travel is this way here, where they said you cannot change anything. Everything stays the same for the timeline. Yeah, and now the new Loki introduced all this craziness. And so what does that mean for Marvel in the future? Do you think this is going to affect the movies and the future endeavors? Because a lot of people have the arguments this is going to bring in the X-Men and a bunch of other stuff. So what's your take on that?
So you're basically saying the timeline is a bit more rigid, like with this sort of Loki series thus far.
Well, that's what the MCU timeline for time travel has been rigid up until this show. Okay. And with the female Loki, upended all that.
Right. But still, they can't change anything once they are like on a specific timeline or, you know, within a specific verse or whatever. You know, I like this time travel, right? There was an episode of Star Trek, like Next Generation, that sort of had the panel where people walked in and walked out to go into different sort of like, you know, time periods. It was very interesting. But I like how this is done. I mean, obviously, it's a bit more tech. And it's just, it's a bit, I think this show, first of all, there's like some very interesting sort of tech intrigue with it as well, right? The time travel is one, right? And the way they travel and the way like the hunters and the TVA go into these specific areas and sort of reset the time back to what it was previously. Or if you look at like sci-fi shows, sometimes they say, you know, we have to erase the memory of these people because they are in the wrong time. So they erase the memory. With this, you know, these reset charges, it's just like, we don't have to do that anymore. We can just like hit these reset charges and everything.
The Men in Black thing.
Right. Yeah, I like it. It's pretty cool. Let me ask you this really quickly. In the first episode, was Loki able to use magic inside of the TVA?
No, they said that inside the TVA, they control his powers, or nobody has powers inside of the realm of the TVA.
Right.
Once he leaves the TVA, he could go back to using his powers again because he didn't have
Okay.
the collar on him.
Okay. So because when he was when they went to the Doomsday scenario in 2050, the Rocks Cart Superstore in Alabama. I think that's so funny. It was a hurricane. He was wet. He came in and he used magic to sort of, dry himself. So,
Yeah.
okay.
See,
So he,
that's interesting because Loki, like, for instance, when the lady Loki, female Loki, was throwing him around, Loki would have just created a duplicate of himself to go
right.
behind her and stab her or something.
That's what I mean.
That's what he would normally have done in any other situation.
Yeah.
And in this situation, he just stood there and let him get thrown around, but he still had all his powers. I'm like, I hope there's an explanation for that. Right now, there is none.
I'm just pontificating, but I think that there possibly is. Like I said, is this a setup? He's able to use magic. Why wouldn't he be able to use his magic to get away, right? But he's just like, he's going with the flow. He's like, hey, you know what? He didn't use his magic to sort of fight off the lady Loki and everyone else, right?
They still have their powers, but he's being very restrained with what he's doing over here on
Do you think it's on purpose, though? That's what I'm saying.
I hope so. I hope that it wasn't, they just forgot that he's super powerful and he can do these things.
No, what I mean though,
it's
right. He's doing it on purpose because there is a much bigger plan that he's actually a part of. He created this. It's possible that he created this entire scenario. It's a master plan. He wants to. Maybe he does want to take over the TVA. This is I don't know, man. I've really got into the second episode. I wanted to watch the second episode again. I was thinking about watching the first episode and then right after that watching the second episode just so they can blend in. But I like this, the second episode. The other thing is this lady variant, this lady Loki, was just basically ripping off all these like reset charges. She had a boatload of like reset charges. Like in
they're all over the
right?
place. How long has she been kidnapping, or not even, she kidnapped once, but how long has she been killing the TVA cops and just stealing their devices?
What do you think about
that's been going on for a while now.
And do you think that this is all, again, I'm going to keep saying it, but is this a creation of Loki, the original one? I don't know. It's possible. But, the other thing is the Loki, the lady Loki, that the Loki variant who kidnapped one of the hunters, before the lady Loki set off all of the reset charges, they were saying like, listen, this variant knows, this Loki variant knows where the timekeepers are. So there's, when they went through the time door, do you think that they went to the TVA?
That's possible too. Here's the thing though. The timekeepers have to be extremely powerful to create this whole system in the first place and to keep track of the timeline.
Right.
So what exactly is the female Loki going to do against people that powerful, that control time and space?
That's a good point. I mean,
what are they going to do?
Loki, the original Loki, is that intelligent that he can possibly, just overpower the timekeepers?
I doubt that very highly, unless they're just going to write it into his MacGuffin or something.
Man, it's so many things you can just come up with this, and that's a good thing. It makes you think. It makes you want to now I'm interested in watching the third episode. This is, I mean, for me, this is just going to I hope it gets better, because it's already good, so it's very cool, man. What is a multiverse? So once the reset charges go off, it creates all of these multiverses, right?
Yeah, it's basically different timelines.
Right.
So there, people say there's 18 different Spider-Mans. This would cause the variation from that. It also depends on when this thing happened.
Yeah.
If it all happens in the 20th century, then maybe there wouldn't be 80 different Spider-Mans, but possibly this causes the timeline to go crazy. And for somebody like Doctor Who, they could probably figure out a way to jump between the timelines.
Right.
Or, yeah.
Wow.
Professor X, I don't know. Somebody would be able to come up with a timeline to jump through.
Man, there are so many different scenarios we can think about in terms of like, why is this happening? It like the sort of clear cut and dry way that they think they're giving it to us, or they're giving it to us this way, giving us the ability to sort of like think about why are these things happening and what's going to happen next, or is this actually happening? Is Loki super smart? Is he like just super intelligent? Is he like, just playing everyone? I'm going with that. I think
he's playing everybody, but again, like the first Marvel shows did not stick the landing. So I think that we have to try and not get carried away with our expectations about where they're going to take the show. We gotta temper our expectations and be like, maybe it's just gonna be a straightforward show. Female Loki's really running the thing, and Loki's just bumbling idiot. Doesn't know what's going on, and that's the show. We gotta, because so far, they built it up a lot, and each time they kind of let people down. They're like, oh, okay, this is what the show's about. This show in particular is gonna lead right into the Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Doctor Strange is supposed to be
what's coming next,
a multiverse. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a multiverse type movie talking about different realities. So we'll see where this goes. But like Kevin Feige said that this show will have the most impact in the Marvel movies going forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think it's clear that the other shows were just here's some content for Disney Plus.
Right.
And then this Loki show is an important aspect of what's going forward for the future. So we'll see.
Let me ask you this question. And again, this is just pontificating. Do you think that the lady variant is actually the real Loki and the male version is actually the
MCU? that's what they're implying heavily.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the Lady Loki's the Loki Prime, and the regular Loki from the MCU is not. He's the copy.
Right.
That's what they're implying. So I don't know, but like, see, the question with that is the Loki that we know, Tom Hiddleston, is part of the timeline that the timekeepers are trying to keep intact.
Right.
So if Lady Loki is supposed to be the real Loki, that kind of is a discrepancy between the argument about the timeline. The Loki that he's on the show right now is supposed to be in the main timeline Loki.
Right.
And she's supposed to be the variant too. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to upend that. But like that upends what they just said in the first show.
After you watched the second episode, how'd you feel about it? Were you excited? Were you like, wow, I can't wait until like the third episode comes? You did watch it twice, so... What do you think?
Yeah, because he jumped through the doorway. I want to see where this is going.
I want to see
where
it's going. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to see that. I hope they try and do something really intricate rather than just the straightforward thing and just call it a day.
Is it me or the Hunters, which is the time variant, are we going to call them the Army? Or
Time cops.
Yeah, the time cops. Is it me or does it look like they don't have a lot of time cops?
It looks like they got 3 time cops or maybe 4. I don't know.
Dude, because...
It seems like it looks like a super huge organization with only 5 people there.
Right, because if the Loki variant like introduced or opened up all these different like time verses, multiverses, right? And I saw like maybe 20 cops walk through these different like, sort of things. And I'm just like, really? You may need a lot more,
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like they have a lot of police hunters. So that's also kind of weird. We will see. I'm thinking they should have an army, but it doesn't look that way. What do you think about episode 2? What are you going to rate it? What do you think?
I rated a strong 7.5, and it's contingent on episode 3.
Okay.
my feeling about episode 2 will go up to an 8 or 9 if episode 3 is phenomenal. If episode 3 is just talking and no action and it's kind of like, meh, then my 7.5 goes down to a 6.
Now,
so we'll see.
Episode 1, you gave an 8, right?
Yeah.
So episode 2 went down a little bit.
Yeah, because I need to see where it's going. I don't want to get too excited and be like, I'm all in on this thing. I like where this show's going, but I have tepid response to it because of the other shows.
Oh,
but
because,
I know a little bit. Yeah, because I know a little bit now what they're trying to say that this show is going to do for the overall Marvel movies.
Right.
I want to see where this goes, but they have, like I keep saying, they have to stick the landing. Yeah.
I'm going to give it a okay, so I thought like the plot, the story, how they built everything up, how, I mean, just, it was, you don't see that a lot in a lot of shows, a lot of, series, a lot of movies. They, they did pretty good with like, building up that second episode and then how it sort of like ended with, just the scene at the Roxcart Superstore and the cliffhanger. I thought the story was pretty awesome. The plot was pretty dope. I'm still going to give it a 7, just overall speaking, because I want to see everything else that happens. I mean, like, we had a pretty good cliffhanger. If we go into like episode 3 and it's like a dud, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
They need to fill in more plot and a little bit more action. I'll be happy with both of those two things.
Yeah.
Either you got to fill in a lot of plot and explain what's going on and what's the purpose of this, or it needs to be action packed and fun. But it can't be just looking at paper for another show.
Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of the Behind the Groove podcast. I am Basil Barrington.
I'm DJ Keo. Thank you for joining us.
Until next time, peace.
Alrighty.